notice something different about Ted?
Let's see. There's something a little off, Ted. What'd you do? You doing something different with your hair nowadays?
No. I mean, it's pretty obvious. If you've, obviously you guys know me, and for those of you who have been following along of our videos, I am wearing different glasses. And
how did this happen, Ted?
How? You, man, these are quite styling.
It's a Bono look you got going there.
For those of you who don't know all of my bizarre hobbies, I did mention in my first vid that I did. I'm into
underwater basket weaving.
No, I'm into
dodgeball, competitive dodgeball.
That's it. Totally into dodgeball. No, I do historical fighting. I belong to a group that follows the ARMA way, which is the Association of Renaissance Martial Arts.
Do you beat up Benjamin Franklin?
No,
because there's a guy that had it coming. I mean,
no,
Benjamin Franklin hate mail. Send it in the comments below. All right,
we go back further than Benjamin Franklin. It's basically dedicated to a fighting style dedicated to the German longsword. What we have here is your ye old basic waster, wooden sparring weapon. Now we follow.
I didn't know we were bringing weapons to this recording.
Actually, hold that up again, Ted. Hold it horizontally so they can see it.
So
here we go.
Be a Van White. Yeah, Van White here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we have we honestly go and learn out of historical texts how people fought with these particular weapons.
So someone hit you right in the glasses with that thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ow.
We wear masks and helmets and whatnot to protect ourselves. But realistically, yeah, my friend Matt squared me right upside the left side of my head, and the 3-weapon mask that I was wearing.
All right, it's true. I paid Matt $5 to do that.
No, technically, the glasses that I do typically wear have been broken 3 times using the same techniques. Did you pay him for the other ones too?
No, I didn't know about that.
No.
Damn.
But the 3-weapon mask I wear
he would have done it for free.
is tight to the head, and the connection point in the middle of that particular style of glasses is apparently weak. So as I got didn't get my block up in time, he jolts me in the head. And I take off the helmet, and the glasses just fall.
Well, Ted, I would like to offer you a piece of advice for the future. Best defense, no be there.
All right. Well, I'll set up a sparring match for you and Matt, and we'll see how well you handle it. How about that?
No, best defense, no be there.
Is that a Mr. Miyagi, or is that
maybe. But anyway, Ted, how long have you been participating in
with this group? I've been around somewhere around 7-8 years. I don't have the actual start date. But it's been something that I've really enjoyed for all this time. And there's a tight knit group of guys that go on a weekly basis, and we pull out these books, and the main focus is the sword. But we do sword, long sword for those of you who don't for those of you who like the gaming term. But we do sword and buckler, we do dagger, we do axe, and we do polearm, and again, the focus is in the longsword, but if you don't have the whole story, the whole crew of weapons, then you won't know how to actually fight against them.
I have a quick question. This is all medieval type weapons?
Yes.
When do you guys use catapults?
We don't use catapults.
Ballista?
No. It's
just asking.
It's all about pretty much the one-on-one or the small group combat.
You could say man-on-man action. Is that would be the
well? I mean, I know you might like the man-on-man action, but I prefer the term one-on-one sparring.
Right.
And I heard the rumor that sometimes you have ladies show up.
We have actually had a number of females or ladies, however you want to terminology it.
Female ladies, yes.
That have showed up to our particular group, and I know that there are many different women out there who follow the ARMA way. So no need to do the hate and give us the thumbs up. It's every group is out there is different. So what other questions did you have about ARMA?
Right. So, are there a lot of chapters out there for people to participate? Maybe if someone out there wants to go find their own ARMA group locally.
Well, I know in this particular area, there's 2 to 3 groups. But if you are interested in checking it out, you can just look it up on just arma.com and just try to. I believe there's a spot on their site to find a local chapter. and if you can't find one, find out how to start one. It's I know their people are definitely good for hooking that stuff up, and I know me personally, I've tried a number of different actual Chinese martial arts or whatever terminology you want to use, and I was always more interested in the weapon play, and not so much in fisticuffs or hand to hand.
He said fisticuffs.
I did say fisticuffs. It's a fun word.
So with your bare hands, not that great of a defense, but put a sword in your hand and you're pretty well there.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I actually stumbled upon this group, I was quite enamored. I looked at Dave and I did some Chinese kickboxing. I've done some Taekwondo, and there was something else that I tried. And it was like, how long before you get to weapons? And they were like, well, if you are a dedicated student, you probably can start learning the bow staff at 7 years. And I'm like, 7 years? Dude, historically, if you're going to go, fight with a sword, the first thing to do is they hand you a sword. So I wound up, going to, one of these little conventions and whatnot, and I got, here's these guys, and they got these wooden weapons, and they got these their versions of padded weapons for the.
So they were like Jehovah's Witnesses with swords, basically, because they were proselytizing. No,
they were at one of these little street fair type situations, and they just were
like
trying
a Ren
to
fair or
similar to like a Ren fair, but it was smaller than the Ren fair, and they were basically saying, look, here's our group. We were trying to show it off and recruit members, and.
It worked. They recruited you.
And they recruited me.
You got one at least. Yeah.
I brought a number of different, my friends to this group, and over the years, I'll bring this guy, and he comes for a little bit, and he leaves. And I bring this guy, and he comes for a little bit, and leaves. And whatever.
Just out of curiosity, was it Rich that was out there doing the?
It was Rich and Matt. They happened to be at the fair, and I was like, okay, what does it take to get involved? How quickly do you actually start using, swords and whatever else? And they're like, oh, it's real easy. You start right away because, again, like you said, if you're going to start using a sword, you need a sword.
So you mentioned multiple weapons. What's your favorite?
Well, right now, my favorite is sword and buckler. There was a book that's commonly referred to as MS-133.
So you use that thing and then a buckler?
Well, there's a smaller sword. In the gaming community, for those of you who've played D&D for years, people like to toss around the idea of short sword. And realistically, that terminology doesn't exist in history. Someone might call it a small sword, or they might just call it a sword. And, it's the gaming community that has to have things statted out to have that, functioned out.
Oh yeah, come on, man! It's a D6 versus a D8. Everybody knows that.
Well, yes, but typically, you have a 9 to 12 inch buckler, or parrying shield or punch shield, whatever you want to refer to it as. And again, for the the gaming community, everyone thinks, okay, well, you refer to it as a shield, and I just put it out there, and then you just stop whatever's coming in. And that's not the way a buckler works. It's meant to literally divert the energy of the attack, or to straight up attack with it, if you can actually manage to land the strike. And the sword and buckler, they work in tangent, in tandem,
Perhaps.
And, they work together so that your hands are technically functioning the way they would be if you were on a sword, but you're holding two different things. So when I actually move into attack, my buckler is here defending my arms or my holding hand, so that if you're keeping yourself alive while you're actually getting the
You guys
strike
ever
going.
use full-size shields?
It hasn't managed to get into our particular group. Other groups might get out there and do it. The problem with that is if you get into full power sparring, you can seriously injure somebody even if they get a successful block going. Our group has had a number of hand injuries and whatnot, which is
Glasses injuries, perhaps.
well, like I said, those did break 3 times, but the beginner mistake is not protecting your fingers And even if you're wearing the serious padded gloves, we use lacrosse gloves because you need to be able to properly manipulate your thumbs. Yeah, if you block wrong or don't get your hands out of the way, someone's gonna get hurt, and then like I said, it's happened.
Better the other guy than you, though.
No,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So, say Ted, it's a pretty nice sword you got over there. You want to show it off for the folks at home?
I wouldn't say it's nice, but it's
serviceable.
It's serviceable. It's a blunted steel weapon. We purchased these in a group. This is from the Cult of Athena, and I don't know how well you can see, but if you actually, again, if you can see, the edge is clearly marked up, and this has absolutely been used in combat. This is your typical long sword, or hand and a half, as the Germans would have referred to it. It's designed to be held in two hands, but
so it's not a bastard.
It's not a bastard.
You do know that it's.
Yep, we know.
I just noticed something,
it's
Ted,
parentage.
when you held the sword. Grab it with both hands again. See if people can see that. The blade actually quivers. The whole thing just shook.
Oh, absolutely. A real sword will.
It happens to a lot of guys, Ted. Don't worry.
Will actually move like that, and
I would think that would kind of make it add another dynamic when you're fighting with two steel blades, if they're moving around and flexing, because that actually flexed a lot when you hit it.
Yes, and that's actually one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. This is the way swords were made, and they actually do that with the blades so that they don't just break when they hit another sword. If you make it too rigid, when the two swords would hit, they wouldn't give, and then they would either dig in or just snap. So you need to actually have some play in the blade. Now, so before we actually wind up working with the steel, there's a step in the middle that we use nylon swords, and these are like basically they look white and plasticky and whatnot, but unlike the wooden swords, the nylons actually show the movement the way a real sword or a steel sword actually would. So we were going through our cutting and blocking drills to work in the muscle memory so that if it were to happen in real life, we'd be set.
When you're real life attacked with a sword.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right.
Well, the dude went and put up his the sword to block a strike coming towards his head, and just two swords met, and the tip smacked around and nailed him in the temple hard enough to drop him to the ground. And because we weren't used to the actual blades moving once they actually struck, so we weren't wearing helmets and we weren't wearing gloves, and it kind of wound up having to change the rules for what we actually kitted up with, as we would call it, for practice and whatnot.
Thank God you got to start with nylon and then go right to the metal. Might have opened up someone's skull.
Well, it is what it is. But I mean, so we got to move up that chain of how this works and how that works. So with the what do you call it? With the the nylons, that's how we found out that the metal actually is going to move.
So wood, nylon, steel.
Right.
And how did you get into this whole ARMA thing anyway?
Well, typically, I've always been somebody who has been involved in gaming and whatnot. And many years ago, when I was fresh into the actual gaming market, I read like a newspaper article that talked about, you can go somewhere and go kill goblins, and I had no idea how it worked, but it was...
They call this homicide, actually, in the real world. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you're playing D&D and you roll dice and you kill goblins, you're still killing goblins. Even if it's the DM saying, your sword cuts through him and whatnot. But, it's before the internet, so I had no real way of trying to find out more information. And, I was young, so I really didn't even know where to begin looking. And a couple years later, or several years later, whatever it is, I'm in college, and a friend of mine says, hey, I found out about this thing called live action role-playing, and we had been tabletopping for a number of years and whatnot. So it's like, well, what is this? It's like, well, you get into the costume of the character, and you actually do the combat for real. And I'm like, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. And of course, we wind up, actually going and checking this out. And I missed the first of, his first event, and there happened to be a gap in between when that event was and when the next one was. So he came back and was like, oh, well, there's this and there's that, and he said it was a lot of fun.
So you weren't going out there and like whacking each other with steel swords,
no,
right?
No, the typical, especially at that time, it's called boffer weapons, and it's a PVC base and plumbing foam in here and some couch cushion in the tip here. So when you're actually striking somebody, you're actually doing it, attacking from the wrist, so that you're not actually hurting. You just have to hit them hard enough that they acknowledge that they've actually been hit.
So before there was steel, there was foam.
There was foam, yeah. So I technically went, foam in the wood and nylon, metal, whatever else. But it's LARPing has its own interest. When you're sitting around the gaming table and someone's talking about passing the Cheetos, and you got to deal with the guy making the off-color comments and whatever else. You don't have that when you go to the LARP. You kind of pour yourself into your costume and become someone else. So while you're trying to stay in character at the gaming table and you're looking around at the dice and the papers and everything else, you don't have to worry about that when you're at a LARP. Typically, you're in the woods. Everyone's trying their best to actually be dressed in costume and stay in character, and you're really in another world. And for me, I went to a LARP and I was there for a number of years, and I wound up having to, I guess, leave that game because my girlfriend at the time really wasn't into LARPing, so I kind of left the game to spend more time with my girlfriend. It was a choice. And then of course as the world changes and people change and relationships change, the girl I wound up with next happened to be someone from that particular LARP, and
the couple that LARPs together stays together, perhaps.
And it's one of those things that a lot of you people out there, guys out there, think, oh well, LARPing or gaming is just for guys. And all the LARPs I've been to, there's always been women, and there's always been attractive women. Your standards might be different from mine, so you got to make your own choices. But there's plenty of stuff going on. The LARPs I've been to have had belly dancers and the whole nine. And so I wound up going back to the LARP to spend more time with my girlfriend. And years down the road, we stopped going to that LARP and we check out something else. And at least in the South Jersey area, the LARPing community has always been well, I went to this thing and I wasn't really happy with it, so I'm going to make my own. And so on and so forth and so on and so forth. So at the time that I'm getting disenchanted with the LARP that I happen to be in, a friend of mine gets kicked out of that LARP and says, well, you know what, I can do better.
Wait a minute, how do you get kicked out of a LARP?
That sounds like a story.
Well, I mean, it was kind of a disagreement that got a little heated and things were said, and basically
were they at least said in character?
Oh no, it was absolutely a person to person type of situation. I don't know. Sadly, I don't know enough of the details other than the people that were involved. But you get in an argument with the owner of a game, and you say certain things, and he doesn't want you coming around anymore.
Huh,
so,
go figure.
Plenty of that works.
So he came to his group of friends that he knew still LARPed and had an interest in it, and he's like, so what do you think about doing our own? So we actually got involved, and we did a year and a half to 2 years of play testing and coming up with rules and getting it all figured out, and so we ran our game for a little over 5 years or so with some changes in staff as people come and go, and it was a lot of fun. I wound up leaving staff to actually go make children.
It's that thing of children fuck everything up.
That's what you keep saying.
Yeah,
Whatever. So I don't want to say I'm a LARPer at my core, but I definitely say that it runs in my veins.
So Ted, how much PVC and couch foam does it make Make a child.
To make a child.
Oh, we're not using the styrofoam.
No.
Real children.
I was married, by this point in time, and my wife and I said, well, we want to actually, produce offspring, and it's kind of hard to, yeah, well, it's kind of hard to worry about, doing that when you're actually out there, dealing with the actual stress of running a game. I mean, realistically, if you're going to run a LARP, it's a business. You have to worry about this and that. We had weekly meetings, and there's always stuff to sew or create and plot to write. It takes a lot of time, so it's not an easy endeavor. So we stepped down and we left it in the capable hands of some friends, and one thing led to another. There was some issues, and didn't last as long as we all thought it would. But it is what it is, and I'm certain that there's another LARP out there that might grab my fancy at some point in time, and we'll see what happens. But over the years since I haven't been LARPing, I've seriously thought about, what games are out there, what's close enough for me to actually go check out. So if you've never LARPed, I seriously recommend checking it out. There's plenty of games that are out there, and heck, I know my favorite author, which I probably mentioned before, is Jim Butcher. He's been a LARPer, and he talks about his LARPing stuff in a lot of his about the author type situations. So it's not just for dorks and dweebs and whatnot that want to run around in the woods in costume. It's a lot of fun, and it's a way to fully immerse yourself in a game without sitting there rolling dice and.
I Attack the Darkness sort of quotes Dr. Demento.
So what you're saying, not being a dork or dweeb, but a nerd, we can enjoy LARPing.
Well, I mean, anybody can, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, the people who are going to be watching this are typically those who, follow Nerdarchy and are those who are in the gaming community. You're somebody who is, come on, let's face it, you're watching a Nerdarchy video. There's some part of you that says, I'm a nerd.
You've come out. You've come out to your friends and family as a nerd. Let's face it.
And LARPing is a way to take that one step further. If you like Halloween, you like getting
level up your nerd game. You heard it here first.
That's right. That's right.
If you like Halloween and getting into costume, and I know there's people out there that do. Here you can get to combine the two together.
Or cosplay. It's kind of a mixture of cosplay.
You got cosplay action in there as well. But you get to really be there, and instead of sitting there saying, okay, I attack the goblin, you literally attack the goblin, and it's a lot more engaging. And dude, you can have typically LARPs that I've been to, they're a whole weekend situation. You get down there on Friday night and the game starts 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and you run until Sunday morning in the wee hours, or sometimes even up through breakfast and whatnot. So you have forget this 4 hour, 6 hour, 8 hour gaming session. You've got an entire weekend of it. And it's so much more fun. It's so much more involved and
immersive, you could say.
And definitely immersive. But I mean, you also have a larger community to work with, and it's a great way to meet fellow gamers. I knew a group of LARPers who, at the end of game, Sunday morning, once everything's packed up and everybody's left, they all go out to the diner and go talk about the weekend and find out, what did you miss? What events did you go on that I didn't have a chance to? Or, what did you think was the best part? And it carries that gaming even further, so you get more enjoyment.
Sunday morning wrap up.
Well, it's the camaraderie of comrades in arms. You've gone through things, you've seen things. So at this point, hey Ted, what's better than getting hit with a wobbly steel sword?
Not getting hit with a wobbly steel sword.
Well, I was going to say that you could
you could subscribe,
and comment below.
So that's it. We've been Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. Thank you for watching.
Have a good one.
Later.
See you next time. did we record this time?
Yes, we did. It says low battery and everything.
You pick up and say.